They pulled the oxygen from me. But heaven gave me air. That's not just a title, baby, that's my truth. I remember that night, clear as day. The hospital room was colder than I'd ever felt before. Machines hummed their final lullabies, and the soft hiss of oxygen was the only sound keeping me company. The nurse had tears in her eyes, whispering something I could barely make out. She's tired. Maybe it's time to let her rest. But I wasn't tired. I was fighting asterisk. Every breath I took felt like a war inside my chest. My lungs burned, my body trembled. But my spirit, oh, my spirit, it was louder than the beeping machines. I could hear my daughter crying outside the door. My son was on the phone talking about arrangements. I wanted to scream. Asterisk, don't bury me yet. Asterisk, but the mask on my face made my words nothing more than a muffled whisper. Then came that sound, the one that changes everything. Click. The oxygen line was pulled. The air disappeared. The silence was loud. For a second, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe this was how it felt to die, to slowly drift away, like smoke rising to someplace unseen. My vision blurred. The world dimmed, and my heart slowed until all I could hear was the faintest echo of my own thoughts. And then, something happened that no doctor could explain. The room wasn't cold anymore. It was asterisk light, asterisk, not bright like those hospital bulbs. No, it was warm, soft, golden light that wrapped around me like a blanket I'd known my whole life. My chest, which had been screaming for air, suddenly felt full, like something unseen was breathing asterisk for me. Asterisk. I saw faces, not doctors, not nurses, but familiar ones. My mama, my brother, even the old pastor who used to pray over me when I was a child. They were all smiling, calm, peaceful. I tried to ask where I was, but no words came out, only tears. And through that silence, I heard a voice, gentle but mighty. You are not done yet. Then the light faded, and I gasped a deep, desperate gasp that broke through the stillness. The nurse screamed. My daughter rushed in. The machines came back to life, beeping wild like they were celebrating with me. Everyone said it was impossible, but I know better. Because when the world took my breath away, heaven gave it back. When I opened my eyes again, the room was chaos. A nurse dropped the clipboard in her hand. Another shouted for the doctor, and my daughter, Lord, my poor daughter, she fell to her knees right beside my bed. Mom, she cried, her voice breaking like glass. I wanted to hold her, to tell her I was okay. But my hands felt heavy, my lips dry as dust. All I could do was blink, slow, deliberate, just to let her know, I'm here, baby. Mama's still here. The doctor rushed in, his face pale as the walls. He looked at the monitor, then at me, then back at the monitor again like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He whispered to the nurse. She was gone for over 5 minutes. I heard him, clear as day. 5 minutes without air. 5 minutes without breath. And yet, there I was, sitting between this world and the next, alive again. The doctor leaned close and asked me, Ma'am, can you hear me? And I remember smiling, even though it hurt. I whispered, You didn't bring me back. He did. He just stared. Science had no answer for the divine. They checked everything, my lungs, my heart, my brain. The results didn't make sense. Your oxygen levels are stabilizing. Without support, the nurse said, confused. You shouldn't be breathing this well. But I knew why I was. Because while they'd given up, heaven hadn't. You see, people think miracles always come with thunder and lightning. But sometimes, they come quietly, like a whisper that only your soul can hear. That night, I felt that whisper again. It said, tell them what you saw. So I did. I told the doctor about the light, about the warmth, about how I saw my mama smiling at me. He nodded politely, but I could see it in his eyes. He thought it was just the brain's way of saying goodbye. But my daughter, oh, she believed. She held my hand and said, Mama, I prayed all night for God to send you back. Maybe he heard me. And I told her, with all the breath heaven had given me, baby, prayer travels faster than any ambulance ever could. The hospital staff started calling me the miracle patient. They brought students, interns, even other doctors to look at my chart. But what they didn't understand was that the real evidence wasn't on paper. It was in the air itself. The same air they'd thought I'd never breathe again. That night, when they turned off my oxygen, I should have died. But heaven wasn't done with my story yet, and deep down, I knew this second breath wasn't just for me. It was for someone else who'd need to believe again. When they finally let me go home, the sun felt different on my face. It wasn't just warmth, it was life. Every breeze that touched my skin felt like a whisper from heaven reminding me, you're still here for a reason. The first few days back were quiet. Too quiet. The walls of my little house had seen me through laughter, through tears, through raising children and burying loved ones, but now, they were witnesses to something else, a resurrection. I sat by my window every morning, a cup of tea in my trembling hands, watching the world move like nothing had changed. But everything had. You don't come back from death and stay the same. I started thinking about why God had sent me back. Was it because my daughter needed me? Because I hadn't finished my prayers? Or maybe because someone out there needed to hear my story before they gave up on theirs. One afternoon, I went to my church, slow, steady steps, each one heavier than the last. When I walked in, the choir was singing, and my pastor froze mid. His jaw dropped. Beth, he said, voice trembling. They'd held a vigil for me the week before. They thought I was gone for good. When I told them what had happened, how the light came, how I heard the voice say, you are not done yet, the whole room went still. Even the babies stopped crying. Then my pastor started to cry. He said, church, you're looking at living proof that breath don't come from machines. It comes from mercy. That night, after service, a woman came up to me. Her eyes were red and swollen. My husband's in the ICU, she said softly. The doctors said there's no hope left. I took her hands, felt her shaking, and told her, honey, I've been where he is. Don't you dare give up. Because when the world pulls the oxygen away, that's when heaven starts to breathe. We prayed right there, in the middle of that empty church. Her tears falling on my hands. I felt that same warmth again, the same whisper that had brought me back. It wasn't just in me, it was around me, between us, moving through the air like a holy wind. That's when I understood. I wasn't brought back just to live. I was brought back to remind people that faith doesn't end when medicine does. That breath isn't just air, it's purpose, it's love, it's divine mercy dressed in oxygen. And as long as I'm still breathing, I'll keep telling my story. Because somewhere, someone is lying in a cold hospital bed right now, and maybe they just need to hear that. Heaven still gives air. It had been 3 months since the miracle. 3 months of quiet mornings, warm prayers, and moments so peaceful, they felt borrowed straight from heaven itself. But life has a way of testing what you claim to believe. It started one night, the same cold creeping up my chest, the same tightness that once stole my air before. I was sitting alone, reading my Bible. When I felt it, that familiar struggle, the breath that wouldn't come easy, my hands began to tremble. The memories came rushing back. The machines, the whispers, the silence after the oxygen stopped. I could feel the panic rising like a wave, trying to drown me all over again. I closed my eyes and whispered, asterisk, not this time, Lord. Not like this, asterisk, but the pain grew stronger. My chest ached, my throat felt dry, and my mind filled with fear. My daughter ran into the room, tears in her eyes, begging me to let her call an ambulance. I grabbed her hand, weak but firm, and said, before you call them, we're gonna call on him first. Right there, between gasps, we prayed. Not the long kind of prayer full of fancy words, just a desperate, Broken cry from a mother and her child. God, breathe for me again. I felt her hand grip mine tighter. And as she prayed louder, I felt something shift in the air. The heaviness in the room started to lift. It was like the very air around me turned light, pure, alive. The pain eased. My chest loosened. And suddenly, I took in a deep, sharp breath that filled my whole soul. I looked at my daughter and smiled, whispering, "See, baby. Heaven don't need permission to move." The doctors later told me it was stress-induced, that I might have panicked myself into a breathing episode. But I know what it really was. It was fear, trying to take back what faith had already won. After that night, I realized something powerful. Miracles don't end with the moment, they live on in how you carry it. The enemy doesn't attack you when you're weak. He attacks you when you've seen too much light to ever go back to the dark. So, I started keeping a small oxygen tank by my bedside, not because I needed it, but as a reminder that while man's air can run out, God's never will. Every time I looked at that tank, I'd smile and whisper, thank you for the air that can't be bottled. Because the truth is, heaven doesn't just give air once. It gives it every single day we wake up. And that night, when fear tried to steal my breath again, faith reminded it, you already lost. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear that sound, the faint hiss of oxygen, the rhythm of the machines, the hum of a world that almost let me go. But now, when I hear it in my dreams, I don't feel fear anymore. I feel thankful, because I've learned something most people never get the chance to know. Breath isn't proof of life, it's proof of grace. Every morning, when the sun creeps through my window, I whisper, thank you for another inhale. It's not just air that fills my lungs. It's mercy. It's purpose. It's a second chance wrapped up in oxygen. I go back to that hospital sometimes. I visit the ICU, the very hallway where they pulled the oxygen from me. Some of the nurses still recognize me. They call me Miss Beth, the woman heaven refused to let go. I'll sit beside a patient's bed, hold their hand, and tell them my story. Some can't talk, some can barely move, but I always see it, that flicker of hope in their eyes when I say, you don't need to see air to know it's there. That's faith, baby. That's how God works. There was one man I'll never forget. He'd been on life support for weeks. His wife had stopped believing he'd make it. I sat with her, told her everything that happened to me. The light, the warmth, the voice that said, you are not done yet. She broke down crying. We prayed right there beside his bed. A few days later, I got a call from her. He'd opened his eyes, and she said through tears, he took a breath on his own. You see, heaven's air doesn't just fill lungs, it fills hearts. That's why I keep telling my story, even when it hurts to relive it. Because someone, somewhere, is standing on the edge between faith and fear, wondering if God still hears them. And if my story can make them hold on for one more breath, then every scar, every gasp, every moment I spent between life and death was worth it. So, if you're listening to me right now, wherever you are, take a deep breath. Go on, do it. Feel that air. That's proof that God's not finished with you yet. You might be tired. You might be scared. Maybe the world has taken your oxygen, your hope, your peace, your strength. But don't you forget, heaven's got its own supply. And as long as there's still one more breath left in you, that's heaven saying, I'm not done yet. Because they might have pulled the oxygen from me, but heaven gave me air.